All right, our next speaker is Kristen Carter. She's going to talk about finding a manageable plan for diet and exercise, and her gift is your personal assessment. Welcome, Kristen. So happy to have you here today.
Hi, great to be here. I'm excited.
If you need to
And I'm
screen,
also so mellow from listening to Amy's talk.
right, right. If you need to screen share, it is open for you, and you have the
Okay,
floor to present.
all righty. Just here.
And play,
Uh,
play.
Great. Everybody can see that, I hope?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So this first slide should actually say finding a manageable plan for diet and exercise. Because we don't want to stress people out when they're trying to make a big change in their lives. Um, and I think a lot of people don't appreciate what a big change any decision like that is. Um, some people just want a little bit, okay, they just want to shift a little bit, but some people really want to do a change in their healthy habits for how they eat and how they exercise because they know they should. So, um, the process of change, as we all know, is stressful. If anybody has moved their home from A to B,
Oh,
even if
yeah.
it's in the same city, knows it is just a wallop of stress. So that's a big example, but anytime we change anything, jobs, partner, um, uh, our focus, our goals, it relays on a lot of stress to us. But I would like to point out that we all go through changes in our lives all the time. I forget what the statistics are about changing jobs, but it's frequent, right? More than you might think. And so we all have times in our lives when we want to make decisions about what changes we're going to make. Like, are we going to take that job? Are we going to move to that new city? Um, and the same would be how you can approach your health. So, how do you want to approach your health? What are your goals for you? Are you just doing like the last bullet point there, just a bunch of shoulds? Are you like, well, my family's bugging me, my doctor's bugging me, the media's bugging me. Um, and I just am tired of that and I want to do better. Okay. So a lot of us, we feel like we need to reinvent ourselves, right? Um, but the point here is that there is no such thing as reinventing yourself. You are always yourself, right? So when you go to make a change, and here I am now going to switch exclusively to talking about eating and exercise, it's about you. It's going to be about you. You're not going to suddenly become a person who eats differently and wants to exercise differently and suddenly do a thing. You are not going to do that. If you do, you're going to face rebellion and resistance and relapse. Those are my 3 R's of trying to change yourself. So um, the point here is that you need to check in with yourself before you start any of that. And as we go through this talk, I'll talk more about how you can do that, specifically, what change in diet and exercise can look like for you, instead of just a list of shoulds. So first we have some strategies that people do all the time. Now, I have spent over 30 years in nutrition and exercise arena. Excuse me. I've seen these again and again. They never work. Also, I'm kind of a science nerd, so excuse me a sec. Um, I do a lot of reading and research. I'm finding out what people are doing and what works and what doesn't. So the first one, people think if they buy a treadmill, elliptical, it's going to motivate them. not, I mean, it's kind of a classic. It's, you know, all those treadmills are now coat hangers. It's a huge classic. Even people who get those little doohickeys underneath their desk and they think they're gonna like pedal as they're at work and things, that gets old real fast. And nothing really changes. You know, maybe for a while you can feel a little better about yourself, but it's not a big change to anything. You know, it's not gonna, it may, okay. Odd case, it may help you feel a little more energetic and you get up from your desk more often, so that's good. I don't want to poo-poo that, but most of the time, relying on that as a motivator does not work. Going on a diet doesn't work. Now this, I could talk forever about this one, but 98% of the time, statistics show that people who go on a diet do not stick to it. The weight comes back on and sometimes even more weight afterwards. So why is that, right? So back to my original point, you are still the same person. And as we go through this talk, I'll talk about more about why that does not work. Same thing, following a program. Supposing you find, you know, you join the Y and there's a program through a 6-week program. If you stick with it, you get a t-shirt, okay? Or there's lots of research done on interventions in the workplace that people do. You know, there's a challenge. They come in, they say, okay, we're gonna have this contest. We're gonna get you, you know, monitored and we're gonna do all this. And so people sign up and they do that. And then when the program is over, so is their exercise or diet. It just, they test them 6 months later, nothing has happened. I mean, they're basically the same. So a lot of these interventions, very rare that they work long-term, very rare. Occasionally somebody will get the aha moment and go, hey, wait, I need to find out more about this. I want to keep going. That's wonderful, but most of the time, it's just not the case. The other strategy here, or actually mistake in their mind that people make, is that exercise is going to melt the pounds off. So exercise does not melt pounds off. I can tell you that having worked in a gym off and on throughout my career, I see people come in and the January thing, right? They come in and I saw one woman literally spend all day at the gym in January and we never saw her again because she was probably so sore and felt so bad the next day or the next several days that, you know, she just never came back. And people a lot of times think, oh, wow, I walked a mile today. So, wow, you know, but then they look in the mirror and they look the same. And so people get discouraged and then they stop walking because they're thinking, well, I'm not getting any results from this. So that is one problem there. The other problem, of course, is that people may walk a mile and then have some Oreos and milk or whatever, right? And if you add up how many calories you burn walking a mile, it's maybe 100 if you're doing a swift walk. So that will very quickly take care of the Oreos and milk, and you know, then you're even back to square one or worse. The other thing I see a lot is people just like, okay, I'm just going to try this next diet because it's new. People are talking about it. I'm just going to give this one a try. Now, just giving something a try means you don't really know what you want to be doing 6 months from now. You don't really want changes that are going to last. You want to give something and you're kind of hoping. It's just a hope thing. It's almost a magical thinking thing. Like you just are thinking, well, you know, what have I got to lose? I'll give the cabbage tomato a try. You know, that's a different story that I won't go into right now. But a lot of times I find people thinking that way about their next effort to change the way they eat and exercise. So, they may join a gym and join a class, but there's just something missing there. And I'll talk more about that pretty soon. So, and by the way, since this is about stress, all those failed efforts can cause a lot of stress. And by the way, dieting, they've shown, is stressful. Dieting releases cortisone. It's a stressful occupation for a person to try to diet and change and follow a vigorous program like a diet. Our bodies and minds just do not like that. So here's 5 tendencies that I've discovered in my work that block our progress. Now, you may, a lot of people, you sit around and you go, well, okay, I really want to go for it this time, but things get in the way. And these are some of the things in our minds, in our habits, in our sort of day-to-day MOs, if you will, that can get in the way. And sometimes you may not even realize that you are doing these things. You may not even realize the stress you're under. It just feels so normal. So this is part of what my free assessment is on my website. These are the 5 things that you may end up with based on the questions that you answer. Now, there's a lot of overlap here. Obviously, nobody's just one thing or another, but I just like to get people thinking about what it is in their lives that's they kind of take for granted, but it stops them, and they kind of don't realize it stops them from reaching their goals. So some people are perfectionists, and that means either they're on their diet or they're not. And if they're not, they may as well just keep on not, right? We all know the effect of like, oh, I had this chocolate cake, I may as well just have another piece because I've already blown it. And same with exercise. Like sometimes I've seen this before where, okay, I'm gonna exercise 3 times a week, and then something happens and it's 2, and then a week comes by and you're sick, or your life happens and you can't do it anymore, and you're like, well, I may as well give up because I can't do it right. So an accommodator kind of goes along with the next one, overwhelmed. Many people, particularly women, are, they want to be there for their families. They want to be there for their extended families. They want to do things that fit in with those things. They may also, of course, at work, you want to be there at the ready to do what what you're required of and asked to do. And that can lead to overwhelm. So you're becoming, just can't say no. So things pile up. You just don't realize that there are some things that you just maybe don't need to be doing. Maybe you really don't. Now, I remember a conversation with a friend who said, you know what? I'm always the one who makes Thanksgiving dinner. And if I don't make the sweet potatoes with the sugar and the marshmallows on, I'm gonna get a major rebellion. Like, I'm just never gonna hear the end of it. And she's always trying to here's a person who likes to make her own pizza from scratch, and she's very healthy and she wants to do it all right. But her family will rebel if she tries to do stuff like that. So that is a problem. And the overwhelmed thing also is there are ways that you can, and it's probably happening in this conference, that you can figure out what it is that you really need to be doing and what is it that you just kind of assume that you need to be doing. I mean, is there an absolute, in the middle here, there's things that really need to happen, but on the outside here, there's things that don't necessarily need to happen. So there's ways you can take a look at that and how you're spending your time. Distractible, I've worked with lots of folks that are like this. And part of it is, it's very complicated with food choices and food addiction even. But you can easily get distracted by, say, let's pretend you're at a buffet and you're like, I just want to try everything, right? And so, meanwhile, you've kind of forgotten in your mind, like that you're wanting to change how you eat, and what choices you're making. So when you're faced with a whole bunch of choices, it's very difficult sometimes to figure out what you want to do about that. Procrastinator is the classic one where somebody will say, well, I'm just going to wait till my life settles down before I do this. Now, in some cases, that is certainly true. Like if you are stressed out to the max, there's lots of things, maybe you're a caregiver, you're kind of in between your older folks and your kids and all those things, that's the time to not really particularly go for a change of your eating habits and exercise. You can do some, but it's not recommended. But there's definitely a bunch of people who go, well, I'm just going to wait until, the sun sets in the east. And so, and that's just a way of, in a way, of being afraid to make the change. A lot of times, psychologically, they say that is an indicator that you're afraid to make the change. So you could sit down with yourself and go, now, what am I really afraid of here? And a lot of times it's afraid of failure. So I want to talk about that also further on. So switching gears a little bit here. What I've also found in the work that I've done is that very many people are not very aware of how their bodies work. And it makes it difficult to discern information that comes in on the internet now, where to get good information, even how to question your doctor, what questions to ask. The studies have shown that people would rather get their health information from their neighbors and friends than their doctor, because they feel like the doctor's kind of out there and the friends have maybe been through it, right? But the friends may not really know what's going on with their bodies either. I run into people all the time who have very, very much misinformation about what's going on with their bodies. Like, I've got this, but it's because of that, but it's not right. So what I liked and what I've done in my books is kind of go through, I've kind of said, now there's actually 14, but I put the body into 10 systems. So that people start thinking about all the things that are going on in our bodies at once to keep us upright and moving and engaged and happy and all those things. And if something goes wrong with one, it affects everything. So I also like to tie that into, like, there is no such thing as like a superfood that's you just going to start drinking cranberry juice or tart cherry juice and you're going to cut down your inflammation and everything's going to be great. It just doesn't work that way. Our bodies are incredibly complex, but we do need to learn a bit about them in order to get healthier. So that's one of my main pitches with, if you decide that you want to get healthier by eating better and by exercising more, it's going to require some learning, okay? That's why following a program or following a diet does not work, because you do not learn anything for the most part. You learn that you hate being on a diet. You learn that the program that you're in is pretty good or not. You enjoyed it, but would you keep on enjoying it a year from now? Have you learned some basics of how to exercise and keep it safe for yourself? Have you keyed into how good it feels? Or are you just following some sort of a program and thinking that you're gonna get, I'm not sure what. Um, so back to this slide here. Gut health is something you hear a lot about now. It's a huge thing. They're now calling it the second brain. So, and of course, stress affects your gut, as we all know. You can feel it, right? But a lot of it is about the bacteria that's in there. And if you, okay, I'll go right into my rant about processed foods here. If you start eating processed foods, your gut does not recognize those as food. It rebels. And your gut is really responsible for a lot of your immunization in your body, your immune system. It's very much involved with that. So if you're eating a lot of junk food, bacteria in your gut are not telling your body how to fight diseases and inflammation. That's kind of the big picture there. That's as simple as that. It just isn't going to help you. So what they've discovered, if you wanted to put it into one word, fiber. So they've discovered that people who eat the most fiber, you don't want to go overboard with it, are the healthiest and they live the longest. All these longitudinal studies about how people are faring in their lives. Your gut loves fiber. There's two different kinds. I won't go into it right now, but that fiber keeps a good balance of bacteria in your gut that are going to be helpful for your entire body, all of its systems, including your brain, how it handles stress, how it handles mood, anxiety, depression, those things. It is all related. Okay, and that comes to brain chemistry there. Your gut talks to your brain all the time, and vice versa. They're now discovering, so there's the famous vagus nerve that helps you relax, and possibly Amy talked about that, I don't know. But actually most of what your vagus nerve is actually connected, your gut going to your brain. It's not the other way around. Your gut is telling you how good you are, how your well-being is. And there's much more communication between the two than you might realize. Genetics, definitely they're discovering more and more genes all the time that relate to putting fat on and obesity. And in the beginning, there was one called the FDO. Can't even pronounce the whole real name of it, but the FDO gene, which is, they call the fat gene. And how it works is it makes people, the unfortunate people who have that, which is supposedly about 16% of the population, it makes them want fatty and high caloric foods more exclusively than, say, a lean person. So you have certain cravings because of your genetics. It's just really eye-opening. So, and it also means that losing weight, and unfortunately people who tend to gain weight, it is just a heck of a thing. I mean, it's not just because you're lazy and you've eaten too much. It's really involved. It's not your fault a lot of times. You have to be up against your genetics. And now they're finding even more genes. There's a whole parcel of them. One of them causes your gut to process carbohydrates more quickly and turn them into fat. So already you're kind of behind the 8 ball there. Now that doesn't mean you can give up and just go, well, it's my genetics. but it does mean you might want to change your expectations. That's what I'm saying. Fat, once it's on your body, they used to think fat just kind of sat there, but fat is its own entity, and it sends messages out and sends hormones out. And the big one, of course, is leptin, which supposedly tells you when you're full. So then you stop eating. So, fat extrudes that. And you would think that if you have some fat laying around, you're going to have more leptin in your brain telling you, okay, I'm not hungry. Unfortunately, your brain gets used to it and gets resistant to it. And so if there is a lot of fat hanging around on your body, your brain doesn't kind of go, oh, I'm full. It just affects your appetite in a very adverse way. Stress and sleep, your gut is also helpful there. So if you have a healthy gut, you're more apt to sleep better, because there's a feedback loop with melatonin and tryptophan and serotonin from your gut that are all going to help you sleep. But if your gut isn't healthy, either from what you're eating and or from stress, it's going to adversely affect your sleep. So it's another reason to get on the bandwagon of trying to eat better, more fiber, more veggies and fruit. And we'll get to that later. So, in fact, we'll get to it now. So, the big picture is, number one, this is my big rant. I'm always telling people to join the war against junk food. So just get on the wagon and go, I am just going to try my best to see what this stuff is, stop eating it, and substitute other things for it in my life when I'm feeling hungry. Have grapes instead of chips. Commercial baked goods are just the pits. Processed meat is really bad for you. So, funny story, kind of. There are, isolates and emulsifiers and stabilizers and all these things that they use to make junk food. And if you think about, say, they've just manufactured the classic Twinkie, then they put in a thing called cosmetic additives, because the stuff that they use to make the food in the first place tastes so bad that they have to add something in there to make it taste good. So that's something to think about. Again and again and again, the Mediterranean style of eating, I don't like to call it Mediterranean diet, is a winner in terms of giving you the fruits and veggies that you need, the olive oil, the phytonutrients, the fiber. If you can, so that is where you need to be headed. So you don't need to be headed to a certain diet that's restrictive or whatever. This is where you can decide you're going to go. To a Mediterranean, there's plenty of cookbooks. There's lots of information on it. I can't do that right now. And you need to look at motivation and willpower again and go, you know what, this doesn't work. If this motivation is coming from a bunch of shoulds, it's not going to work for you. You need to find something inside yourself. Why do you want to do it? And then the big one here, gradual change. So you want to just, over time, it's a transition, not a diet. It's a transition to a different style of life. That's why they call it lifestyle changes, right? And in the end, you want to develop autonomy with it. You don't want to follow a program. You don't want to follow a diet. You need to learn, be there so that when things come up, you know what to do. And you have ways of finding out what to do, if that makes any sense. So you're out at, wherever restaurant, and you already have a plan. You've got this. You have this style of eating that you are looking for, you focus on that, and then, but things will happen and you'll need to figure out how to activate that in your life. The other thing is to question things you may have taken for granted. I'll do that in a second. So I know I'm running a little late. Is that okay? Pamela?
Yeah, your time is up.
Oh, rats. Okay. I got really close to the end. So
Do you have just one more slide left, or?
I do.
Okay,
So
that's fine.
okay. Go to my website, designforfitness.com. There you get your personal free assessment. There's a bunch of cheat sheets about things to look for, things that can help you along. There's also one about ultra processed foods. I blog every other week or so. There's for maybe the last 8 years, there's lots of blogs on there with good information. I'm offering a coaching program to help people find their way. And these two books here, The End of Try Again and the workbook, actually help people. The approach is I ask a lot of questions. So when in answering the questions that I ask you, you find out more about yourself and maybe some things that you hadn't thought about before. So,
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kristen. And the link to her gift is in the chat. You're going to grab your personal assessments. Thank you so much, Kristen. Do so appreciate it.
oops.